I think I'll call this video Tacticool. Don't worry if you've not heard that expression before. You definitely know what it is. And if you go walking in the hills, you will have seen it many, many times. Tacticool goes by different names depending on where you are in the world. I've heard it called Gucci gear, bag bling, Chinesium, alley kit, and lots of other things. But the idea is always the same. So what is it? We've all seen people walking over the hills with every conceivable type of gadget dangling from the front of their rucksack. My personal favorite is the prusik loop, this one here. I don't know why. Then there are, I don't know, ranger beads. There's tiny plastic thermometers. There are cheap carabiners, whistles, you know, with built-in compasses. There's massive survival knives that some people have strapped to their shoulders, and lots of little pouches that are full of things. Well, I don't even know what's in them. They're full of things. The list is endless. We've all seen it. I think there are two main reasons for this, why guys do it. Firstly, there are countless unqualified, self-proclaimed experts online, and they will tell you that you absolutely must buy this and you must buy that, just in case. It's fear marketing. They'll have you believe that going out for a Sunday stroll in the park or your local hills, you'll need military-grade survival equipment. Now, I'm not sure how to put this, so I'll have to be careful. As you may have noticed, I'm a man, and as I said, I'll be careful what I say here. But I do have some information to share with the other half of the human population. There is something that all men do that you may not be aware of. And if this is the first time you've heard it, I apologize in advance for breaking it to you like this on a YouTube video. Okay, this bit you already know. And here I'm talking about men who go walking in the hills. All men love gadgets. The more the merrier. We buy complete rubbish and then spend weeks trying to justify it. We can't help ourselves. We'll see something that we know is completely ridiculous, and then we'll feel an overwhelming desire to buy it. And the 4 billion people, 4 billion women in the world probably already knew that. But here's something you may not know. Once we own this ridiculous piece of equipment, we will justify it in our brain, and we'll immediately see it as essential equipment. And we won't be sure how we ever went up the hills without it before. Just in case we take a wrong turn in the local park and we end up in the Amazon jungle or in the desert or in the Antarctic. Who's laughing now? You see, look at this little thermometer. Yep, I know. If I was in the desert, this would tell me that it was hot. If I was in the Arctic, it would tell me that it was cold. You see, these are essential pieces of equipment. The second reason that men buy all this rubbish is that buying kit is fun. There's always another gadget that promises to solve a problem that you didn't realize you had. Now, don't misunderstand me. Some of this equipment has perfectly legitimate uses, and in the right situation, it can be invaluable. On the other hand, some of it is totally useless. The problem isn't the equipment. It's carrying specialist gear for situations that you're never going to encounter. And even if you do think that you may encounter these situations, keep it all inside your rucksack until you need it. I'll give you an example. Today is the 3rd of July, and I'm in England. Okay, so it's going to get dark tonight at about 10:30 in the evening. At the moment, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. So that means I have another over 12 hours of daylight. So why on earth do I have a torch dangling from my shoulder of my rucksack strap? There may be a total eclipse of the sun that I wasn't expecting, or the ground could open up, you know, and I might fall into a cave. But even if those things were going to happen, you know, my torch would be in my rucksack when I, you know, hit the floor of the cave or the sun disappeared. And normally I'd need a head torch. That's what sensible people would carry. So why do people have torches like this strapped to the outside of their rucksack? You know, it's a tactical torch. So if the country is invaded, or, you know, if aliens finally arrive from outer space, I'll be able to do tactical things with my torch. You know, if you are going to carry stuff in your rucksack, carry the right equipment. Not one of these. Well, you might want to carry it for an emergency or if you're going camping, but you need a head torch. Another example, and this is my favorite, it's my favorite piece of inappropriate equipment. It's this, the prusik loop. You know, I have seen so many guys, it's always men by it, it's always guys, it's never women. I have seen so many guys who simply think that they must have one of these strapped to the outside of their rucksack just in case they need it immediately. It's like a badge of honor. How many of them actually know how to use a prusik loop? I don't know. Oh, on this point, by the way, a long time ago, I was climbing up the Eiger. It's a mountain in Switzerland, and me and my mate, we were roped together walking over the glacier, and he was in the front and the snow gave way and down he went. He fell into a crevasse and he was just spinning around on his rope, and I was holding the other end of it. And he used two prusik loops, you know, which were attached to his climbing harness to climb back up out of the crevasse. So yes, these do have a genuine purpose. The problem is that that purpose isn't walking around your local park. But here's the thing about prusik loops. They are friction knots, and they're used in rock climbing and mountaineering for ascending fixed ropes or escaping from a crevasse or lots of other things. But to use one, you actually need a rope. You need a fixed rope to tie your loop onto it. I'll just show you how they work. So here we have, just tie this up. I would tie it a little bit better than that if I was using it for real, but it's just for a demo. That's quite solid. So here's our prusik loop. Now these would be normally attached to your climbing harness. They're totally useless attached to the strap of a rucksack. If you use it like that, you will probably die. And I'm not being funny about that. You will almost certainly die. So these need to be on a climbing harness. And all that happens is you would unclip them in an emergency and you can just pull them and they open up. And then to attach them to a rope, there's lots of different ways to attach them, but one of the most common methods is simply to wrap it around the rope. You do it on 3 turns, and that one goes through there. Pull it tight, make it look a little bit neat, like this, and then clip a carabiner to it. And then this will slide up the rope, but once it's tight, so you can actually slide up and then pull down, and that will never move. Well, this branch might fall on my head, but the rope and the prusik loop are solid. And if you want to go down the rope, you would simply loosen it slightly, he says, and then you can slide it down the rope or you can slide it up the rope. But once you can attach this to your climbing harness with your carabiner and it will stay there. You know, that's what prusik loops are for. If you're heading into terrain where you genuinely might need to use prusik loops, my strong suggestion would be go and join a local rock climbing club or a mountaineering club. Honestly, these clubs, I've come across lots of them. They are filled with, honestly, the friendliest people you will ever come across. You know, so you can't go wrong. if you spend a few weekends with people who actually know what they're doing, you'll find that it's a lot more enjoyable than trying to work it out, prusik loops, when you're halfway down a crevasse. So anyway, that's enough about prusik loops. Don't wear them on the outside of your rucksack. Next, ranger beads. I did a video last week about how to use these, and the short version is that unless you're heading out into featureless terrain, say a desert or a glacier or the Cairngorm Plateau in February, you simply don't need them. But even if you think you may need ranger beads, these are ranger beads, by the way, these little things here, put them inside your rucksack. If you think you may need them, keep them in your rucksack. They don't become any more useful just because they're hanging on the outside of your shoulder. Now, in different parts of the world, you'll need different equipment. If you're heading into the, I don't know, let me think of the vast boreal forests of Norway or Canada, or the Valdivian forest, rainforest in Chile or Argentina, you may need a large, heavy-duty fixed blade knife featuring, with a full tang. Oh, a full tang just means the blade extends all the way through the handle, and it's that full tang which should stop the blade splitting or cracking if you're chopping dense pine, or you're splitting frozen larch. But in the UK, all you need is something like this. We all know what these are. I mean, this is the latest Leatherman. Hopefully you can see that. But in the UK, this is all you need. But once again, keep it in your bag until you need it. Don't have it dangling on the outside. Oh, the difference, by the way, between boreal forests and Valdivian forests is that boreal forests grow in low rainfall subarctic conditions, and they're mainly conifers. Valdivian forests grow in heavy rainfall, areas, and they're year-round. They have year-round rain. So normally a mild Atlantic or oceanic region, and they're mainly broadleaves. Mind you, I think Valdivian is actually a subtype of temperate rainforest. There's lots of different types of forests. I'm trying to remember my environmental science classes from school. I think the main ones are, if you know any more, let me know in the comments. There is boreal, tropical rainforest, tropical dry. What's the other one? Temperate broadleaf, temperate coniferous, and Mediterranean. But that's all a different video. This place, as you can see, this place here, this is Anglezark, by the way. This is temperate broadleaf, as you can see behind me. Yeah, I know Anglezark is a very strange word, and there's a small aeroplane or helicopter or something just above my head at the moment. Anglezark is a strange word, I know, but as I always say, whenever you're out in the countryside, there is always something interesting. And this rather ordinary forest is no exception. The name Anglezark tells us that people have been farming in this area since the Viking Age, over 1,000 years ago. Wow, 1,000 years ago Vikings were here. I don't know. Mind you, people have actually been here for much longer than that. About a mile in that direction, there's a Neolithic burial mound called Round Loaf, which is approximately 3,500 years old. So, Anyway, Anglezark, it's a Viking name. Angle just comes from Anlaf, which is a very common Viking name. And Zark comes from the Old Norse word, which is Ug, meaning a summer hill pasture. Oh, if you actually want to know in England, I don't know how it works in different countries, but in England, if you want to know some of the history about a place or an area, there are lots of websites that you can search, like Historic England or the British Library and so on. As you know, the reason they will be able to give you information about place names and what have you from 1,000 years ago is that people don't change. They don't. So what's happening now probably happened in the past as well. And one of the things that definitely doesn't change is that people disagree and they argue about things. Okay, in the past, disagreements may have been slightly more violent than they are at the moment, hopefully. But even then, people went to court to settle their disputes. And it's good for us that they did, because when you're trying to get lots of information about an area, you can always look at the feet of fines. And, you know, there's lots of feet of fines that have been scanned and they're online. Oh, if you've not heard the expression feet of fines, they were, in England, they were royal property records. When there was a property dispute, and it was settled and they all came to an agreement, there were 3 identical copies. They were written on one piece of parchment, and then that was cut in 3. And the top 2 were given to the 2 disputing parties. But the 3rd, which is lucky for us, was kept as a record of that agreement. And it's called the feet of fines. Oh, feet is just because the bottom section of the parchment was the bit that was kept. So it's called feet or foot. And fines just is an no, it's not. It's a, it's a Norman French word, fin, which just means the end. Because it was the end of the document, so feet of fines literally means the bottom copy of the agreement. There you go, you can, everybody will be now Googling feet of fines. What was I saying? Too much. I almost started waffling then, but I actually, have you noticed that I restrained from waffling on this video? I got so many comments about the last one. Yeah, I know. So let's stay focused on Tacticool, and let's keep going. We are going to stay focused. So if you're going high altitude mountaineering or rock climbing, or you're in the military, you will need different equipment. And in some cases, they are strapped to the outside of your rucksack, you know, so you can get them quickly. Rock climbing and mountaineering, normally it's on your harness. But in those cases, I assume that you already know what to do without a list from YouTube or some idiot talking on a YouTube video. Just one final point. These cheap, silly little rucks, these silly little carabiners, these things here, these will snap if you try and hang anything heavier than a water bottle on them. So if you really must use carabiners, get real ones that are safety rated, which they should look something like this. Okay, I'll leave it at that. So come on, guys. Once again, I'm only speaking to guys because, as I've said, I've never met a woman who does this. Let's stop attaching everything to our rucksack. The simple rule is, if you see someone with lots of things clattering around on the outside of their rucksack, they're probably carrying it for appearance rather than necessity. And the reason for this is simple. The gear that really matters is always carried inside your rucksack. Okay, it won't snag on trees or rocks, and it will stay out of the wind and the rain. And it will still be there working properly when you actually need it. So I'll end this with a phrase that I want you to remember as, let's be honest, the rest of this video was mainly waffle. What was it? Boreal rainforests. What on earth has that got to do with rucksacks? Oh well. You can carry whatever you want. You know, it's not for anybody online to tell you what to, you know, we can give you advice, what we would do or what I would do in the same situation. If I was going somewhere, I know what I would carry and I can tell you that. But honestly, it's up to you what you carry. You know, it's it's a free world. You can do what you want. But remember this, if you don't remember anything else. The general rule is accessible but contained. And you've probably forgotten that already. So here's the best way to learn anything. Learn it, do it, teach it. So you've already learnt accessible but contained. So now what I want you to do after you've watched this video, and I want you to practice it for a while. You know, try and put everything in its place inside your rucksack or your backpack so that it's accessible but contained. Then once you start to do it naturally and you know how to pack your rucksack, show somebody else how to do it. Show them how they should carry their own equipment, accessible but contained. And then after you've learnt it, done it, taught it, to quote Rudyard Kipling, "And which is more, you'll be a man, my son." That's the end of the Tacticool video, you know, about these things. I've known those words, "and which is more, you'll be a man, my son," since I was at school. Have you ever noticed that something that you hear, or you see, or you feel, or you smell, or you say, it can remind you of something from years and years ago? It's called the Proustian moment. I'll put that on your screen so you can Google it and get lots of information. But just saying, "and what is more, you'll be a man, my son," for me that was a very evocative Proustian moment. Oh well. "And which is more, you'll be a man, my son." That was the end of a poem by Rudyard Kipling, and it's called "If." It was a message to his son, John. John Kipling wanted to join the army in the First World War, but he kept getting rejected because he had very bad eyesight. And his father, Rudyard Kipling, used his personal influence to get John a commission in the Irish Guards. And then John went to war, and in his very first battle, the Battle of Loos, 18-year-old John was killed. His father, Rudyard, was consumed by grief and guilt for the rest of his life. After the war, he wrote a collection of 30 short imagined inscriptions for the gravestones of the fallen soldiers, and he called it the Epitaph to War. One of the most famous, and which I suppose is true of all wars, is that it points out that old men start wars and then send young men off to die. Whether you agree with it or not, it's difficult to read or hear without at least stopping to think. It goes like this: "If any question why we died, tell them because our fathers lied." As I said, the poem "If" was written as a message to his son, offering advice on how to live his life. And I'm not sure that this would be good advice for fathers to give their sons nowadays, you know, but I'm trying to remember the full thing. It's been an awful long time since I was at school. I'll give it a go. "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal with lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dream your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make traps for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop to build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at the beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart, your nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they're gone, and so hold on when there's nothing in you, accept the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men can count with you, but none too much, if you can fill an unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son. And you'll know how to pack your rucksack correctly. Thanks for watching.